What's going on, people? It's Kid Shorty Gaming Nation in the building. Here to drop some game on you feel me? Um, as the title says, or it's going to say, the war in the square, how society turned good men into safe men. Um, it's going to be a lot that I put into this video today. And a lot of the works that I make, I should actually turn them into books. You feel me? I should really turn them into books. Um, Give me a moment. I'm looking for something I want to read from. All right, I think it's this. Right, I should really turn them into books or literature and produce them into the world outside of the digital space or the metaverse or whatever you want to call it. But I'm talking about this for black men, and we're going to use uh, Russell Wilson. We're going to use Carlton Banks. We're going to use Michael B. Jordan. We're going to use Steph Curry, right? Because these men are phenomenal men, right? High achieving, highly successful, high performance. It's just that society now, because they live by society's expectation, that's one layer, and then they live by black culture's expectations. They get put. Black culture trains black men to either be two extremes: the Future or the Russell Wilson, the chaotic, rebellious nigga as Future is, and then the Russell Wilson's safe, square safe guy. The reason being is because now when a woman can't control a Future, they're gonna get with they want to fall back on a safe Russell Wilson. You know what I'm saying? Or safe Michael B. Jordan. You know what I'm saying? This is why anytime Michael B. Jordan he dates a white woman now, they complain about it because now, A, he's getting a better type of woman, or best a woman that actually respects him, and B, black women don't get to use him. You feel me? This is why every time when black men date outside their race or date a white woman, they say, only reason why you date that white woman because she let you get away with a lot of mess. That's vague. And I told you to use logical interpretation to find out what people when they say vague things mean, right? What black women mean is that you're dating that white woman because she's actually being submissive to you and she's actually respecting your order and she's not disrespecting you. She's submissive to your ecosystem and how you run things. That's why they're telling you that, right? Because when you watch a black man get into a relationship with a white woman, and that woman's respectful, she's following his program, she's a part of his ecosystem. You know what I'm saying? Black women call that her being a pushover, or she's tolerating his mess. You feel me? And at the same time, I'm trying to dirty Mac him to shame him before everybody else, right? So that's what that is. So without further ado, we're gonna go into this. The predictability factor, right? And I actually put it. There's two things that I'm gonna actually turn these into books and literature, right? So I just gotta find the right people who can help me produce it in my area. So yeah, I might have to do that. The predictability factor. Context: the modern relationship market. Over the last 30 to 60 years, relationships have shifted dramatically. Back in the day, relationships were built on structure, discipline, and leadership, where men led and women respected that leadership. In today's market, the culture has changed. Women claim they'll only submit to certain men, usually celebrity types or ideal men like Michael B. Jordan or Steph Curry. These men are put on a pedestal by modern women as the type of man they listen to. But what's interesting is how women respond once they actually get those men, right? Now, what's funny is that women are allowed to move how they want to move with their submission, but black culture shames black men for how they want to lead with their masculinity. Like black men are not allowed to be selective with the type of woman he want to be with, but black women get to be selective with the type of women, with the type of men they want to follow, right? Which, when you go back to the Victorian era, women had to respect the leadership regardless, right? Example: Steph Curry and Ayesha Curry. When Steph Curry and Ayesha Curry got together, it was during the early 2010s. I think the 2010s, the 20 teens, the early 2000s, that was like the baddie and entertainer era. Like you had to be a baller, a hustler, a thug, a gangbanger to get the flyest chick, right? That era where being a baddie and getting with an athlete. I remember that era too. But back in 2010, I was 18 years old. I'm 33 years old now. So it's like I remember back in them days, right? And a lot of niggas tried to pretend to be a gangster or a thug or became ballers to get the baddest chick, which I think was the wrong move. I didn't do that, right? Which I kind of went against the grain during that time, right? I want against the grain against a lot of shit, because back in 2010 that was the sidekick era and shit, and maybe I shouldn't count that era because for myself because I was 18 at that time. Technically that's like puppy love shit back then. Was I a little bit of a simp? Yes. But I wasn't simped all the way to the simp 15,000 power, right? I still held myself accountable. I still argued with women. Even the culture at the time told me that not to do that. You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of things that I inherently did and didn't do, right? I didn't follow along with the street nigga shit to get the bitch. If you saw me doing street nigga shit, that's because that's what I wanted to do, right? That's what I wanted to do. I went so for example, right? Without me saying too much in my background, I'm not a street nigga. I would say I'm a hood nigga, but I never got that far deep into that life, right? Where I'm gang banging and shooting people and nothing like that. But the reason why I engaged into it a little bit because I was curious about that world. I want to know about that side of the world. And I'm from East New York, Brooklyn. So I'm saying I was curious about it. So I never engaged in that stuff for as little as I engaged into it because to attract a bitch of it. Right? Even when a lot of times we was doing the player max shit back in my 20s, I didn't even do that because of women. I did that because I wanted to learn this thing to dominate the game. I wanted to be the best at this. You know what I'm saying? That's why I did things. Even if I was approaching women, right? And my older brothers were schooling me on how to talk to women, and I would ask them questions. That was because I wanted to know the game. I wanted to know what this was about and how to do this and be successful at it. That was based off of me. Now, based off on, that's what bitches liked. And then I kind of developed my own thing. You know what I'm saying? And, I got to say this. Shout out to my older brother. Shout out to my father. Shout out to the men in my family that gave me the game on how to approach women and talk to women. Because you got a lot of dating coaches out here charging niggas $5,000 to teach men how to talk to a bitch. Let me put my motherfucking face on here. Of dating coaches teaching young men or charging young men $5,000 so y'all could go teach her how to talk to bitches. $5,000 to go talk to a bitch, teach her how to talk to hoes. Now I know why. They don't want to hold the women accountable because now when the women are in chaos and they're not being held accountable to the men and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, if you're a young kid and you run into the dating market and you run into situations, now you get to go to run into a dating coach and pay a $5,000 package. Yo, when I first saw it, I was dying laughing. I wish I was recording myself when I first saw what it was, so you could hear the organic laughter I was making. $5,000 from a dating coach to teach you how to talk to a bitch. Woo! $5,000. Now, I'm not knocking no man because guess what? You have Sadie Kong out here charging niggas $8,000. The only difference with Sadie Kong and the daily coach is Sadie Kong got a pussy. And she got that Pandora's box that niggas wanted to open. That's the only difference. But $5,000 to talk to a bitch. What's a female dating coach or a male dating coach? $5,000 to $8,000 for them to teach you how to talk to a bitch and get a bitch? Nigga, take your ass outside. What's wrong with y'all? And what's wrong with you dating coaches? Now I know why you don't want to hold women accountable. It ain't got nothing to do with masculinity or none of that. It's about y'all, about the chaos being there, so you can exploit the chaos, so you can make money off the chaos. $5,000 fucking dollars for a dating package. For y'all to learn how to take rejection from a bitch. You gotta be bumbleclap kidding me. You don't have to be kidding me. But don't believe it or not. That's what I'm glad for my brother. Thank God for my brother. Thank God for my father. Thank God for the man them in my family there. Give me the game early. For top 2 man, I take the little early something. Rejection thing then. Thank God. Right. Now me know. Now me know. Now, tell you this about me. If I start producing books and literature, yeah, I'm going to charge you $50 for my book because I'm producing new literature. Like a lot of stuff you see me producing there, I've put like come on presentations, I put them in the books, but I'm not going to charge you $5,000 for it for the book. Maybe $50 if you want a signature. Maybe $100 depending on if it's hardback or paperback. But $5,000. No, I'm not knocking any man for how you want to run your business. Go ahead, but $5,000. And then when you look at the stuff I present to you, a lot of this is deeper than getting a bitch, than a bitch rejecting you, than a bitch rejecting you. Like I'm dropping game and science in here. But anyway, it's whatever. You know, if y'all want to pay $5,000 for a nigga to teach you how to approach a bitch and get rejected by a bitch, it's your money. Ayesha herself admitted so when Steph Curry and Ayesha Curry got together, it's already talked about that. Ayesha herself admitted she wasn't that interested in Steph at first. It wasn't until he became an NBA player that she started showing real interest, which tells you her motivation wasn't based on character connection. It was status-based because that was what that era was back in 2010s and 2010s and shit. You know, and the 2000s. Right? It was all about the baller. You know, this was the era of the video vixen. You know what I'm saying? And the video vixen, like, or the corn stars like Cherokee the Ass and all them type of women did. And Beauty Dior and these type of people. Women. You know, and you got the baddie got with the baller or the thug or the hustler or the entertainer. That's what that was back in the era, right? Because I was 18 at the time. Now, fast forward years later, she's publicly embarrassing him, saying she wants attention from other men. That shows what happens when a woman never fully respected the man to begin with. And a lot of people pointing out that, you know, Ayesha Curry's behavior is that she's jealous of Steph, even though Steph has invested in her, paid for a lot of her business ventures, all that. So, the core issue: predictability. The biggest problem with men like Steph Curry or Michael B. Jordan isn't that they're not good men, it's that they've become too predictable. Women crave structure, but they also crave sense of mystery, challenge, and masculine direction. When a man gives unlimited access or no boundaries, the woman starts to feel like she can do whatever she wants. And that's where disrespect starts dying. That's also where the edginess of you lost. And we're going to explain that. Why predictability kills respect. A man being predictable means she always knows your next move. There's no edge, no sense of direction. That keeps her in check. You don't correct disrespect. When she crosses a line. So let me tell you something about this, right? There's women that do value a man that know exactly where you're going. Like she like for her that's structured. Like she doesn't have to worry or fret about you. Right. So there's women that directly value that in a man, right? But you gotta find women that align with that. That's for you. That's like what they say, compatible or equally yoked, right? And I think because in black culture we don't separate the difference between lady, video vixen, whore, 304, or whatsoever. A lot of men can't tell the difference, right? Um, but still, you still got whether she values your direction or not, compatible with you or not. What's going to make you still predictable and kill that attraction is that you don't correct disrespect. When she crosses the line, instead of you setting the tone, you let it slide. She learns that your leadership is weak. You give without requiring alignment. You keep rewarding behavior that doesn't match your standards, whether it's lateness, attitude, or lack of effort. So, in other words, when Ayesha Curry was out there talking that shit, Steph should have checked her ass. Steph should have said, "Oh, hold on, what's going on? Why are you going on these platforms talking bad about me? I've invested into your business. I gave you 2 kids. I've stood on business. What's going on?" And a lot of you traditional men, this goes for myself too. We got when the women we are with step out of line, we gotta say, hey yo, I'm doing this, that. Do I have to remind you of the type of nigga I am and how you're fumbling the bag? Now, this is the thing I can't really speak on because I'm not married and I don't have children. I don't know what the solution is for Steph Curry because he has children with Ayesha Curry. So maybe some of you guys who got kids and you're married, maybe you can give me a solution, right? Because I don't know. I saw looking in for my own opinion. I could say it would be a bad decision for like Steph Curry to leave Ayesha Curry because they got kids. And I think they got young kids at that too. You know what I'm saying? The only problem is that what if Ayesha Curry leaves? You feel me? Now, Ayesha Curry, you picked that man. Shut the fuck up and serve that man that you picked. Let me put my face on the camera. Ayesha Curry. Coach Curry. It's funny how you light skin Curry niggas. Never mind. Shut up and serve the man that you picked to follow, regardless of whatever reason you picked him. I don't know what it is about women that think listening to society, teaching you how to be hoes, that's the best thing for you. And Steph Curry, you gotta have a conversation with that woman, bro. I'm not telling you to be blunt and brash like I am, but at least be like, yo, what's going on? Like, what is the issue? Am I not taking care of you? Reminder of your position, a reminder, yo, this is what I've been doing that for you. Right? I've done that with chicks. Now again, I've never gotten to the journey of marriage or kids yet. So I really can't speak on Ayesha Curry or Steph Curry on what to do. I don't want to tell him to leave the woman, because now he's breaking up a home. You feel me? So some of you guys is more experienced as far as marriage and having children, and y'all gone to that stage. Comment in the comment section. I only can speak on girlfriend and boyfriend stage, and the longest situation I've been in with a woman is like 3 years, and I've had those conversations with the person. And I had to break it off and walk away because they did not respect my position. This was when I was in my 20s and I was a personal trainer, right? And they didn't respect my position or whatsoever, right? I actually had 2 girls. I had actually had the relationship before that one. It was 1 year. The chick broke up with me or whatsoever. Because I was a simp at that time. I wasn't full on simping, right? But I was simping in the extent where at the time I was in martial arts and I was in personal training, and she told me she was attracted to that's what I was into. And then what I did is that I fell off doing that to thinking that I'm supposed to dedicate time to the relationship, and I abandoned that. You know what I'm saying? And she told me that, like, yo, you was doing that. But then now when you kind of simping to her and you stop doing that. Well, she didn't say it in that language directly, right? But based on the conversation we had, that's what it was. So translation, how you niggas say today, I turned on my purpose to serve the woman. You feel me? Because I thought at the time that's what you did. That's what you were supposed to do. And then I got into a 2-year relationship, 2 to 3 year relationship with another chick. You know what I'm saying? And I broke up with her at that time because now I'm to my purpose, and then I would find time to, be with her whatsoever, and she not respecting it. So I had to call her on it, and I just broke up with her at that point. You feel me? But that's just as far as my experience with relationships goes, right? I haven't made it to the marriage stage, and I haven't made it to having kids stage yet. So I can't tell Ayesha Curry, I can't tell Steph Curry how to handle that situation. But outside looking in, I don't want him to break up a family. I don't want him to divorce the chick while they got kids. And that's where the old school saying "happy wife, happy life" come in. Unless now he's going to stand on his square, no puns intended, and put his foot down and tell her this is how it's going to be. I don't know. People who's more experienced got to tell me. Because it's easier to walk away if you're like me, like you're just dating a chick, or like for this, if you're afraid to walk away. Once a woman senses that fear, she knows she has emotional power over you, and that's the beginning of the end, right? I could do that if I'm in a relationship with a chick, and we're just girlfriend and boyfriend, and we're just dating. That's easy to do. A whole marriage where you have children now, I don't think that's so easy to do. Based upon how I've watched my parents, my aunties, my brothers, my sister, cousins, friends, family. I don't think that's an easier thing to do. The root problem: no vetting structure. During the early stages, the vetting and mating process, most men don't establish their standards. For example, if you set a date for 7 p.m. and she shows up late with no respect, and you still take her out, you just told her your boundaries are negotiable. That's the moment you were supposed to teach her respect, not through aggression, but through standards and consequences. Not through aggression, but through standards and consequences. A man's structure and expectations should be clear from day one. That's what creates respect and order. Now, a lot of Black culture teaches Black men not to do this. And the reason is to make your boundaries negotiable so she can have control over you, right? So this section right here, now that Black men are doing it, now you hear Black women shitting their bricks and complaining about where these good men at. Good men, the translation of a good man is a man that the man like the boomer Black men, happy wife, happy life Black men, where they're going to be providing for a woman that don't respect his boundaries or his direction. So, real reason: relationships fail when the man becomes too safe, too predictable, and too accessible. The woman starts seeing him not as a man to follow, but as a man to manage. The same women who say they want a good man end up disrespecting him because he doesn't make them earn it. The power of masculine presence isn't about being toxic. It's about being consistent, firm, and unafraid to walk away. Now, again, like I said, I don't know about a marriage and having kids. That's a different story now. You know what I'm saying? Married and you having children, I've seen people, stick together. Family members that stuck together for the sake of my cousins, their children, and then broke up after that. So, but then again, I'm not in that situation to get game on how I'm supposed to respond to that. So I can't give any answers to that. Right? Final thought: when a woman knows exactly how you react, she starts feeling inspired to follow your lead. Predictability without boundaries equals compliance. Complacency. Leadership without correction. So let me read that properly. When a woman knows exactly how you react, she starts feeling inspired to follow your lead. Predictability without boundaries equals complacency. Leadership without correction equals disrespect. And love without standards equals loss of value, right? Sovereign identity versus cultural expectation. Context. What's really going on? Over the last few decades, a lot of Black men, especially those who become successful, are not responding from their own sovereign masculinity. They're responding to what society tells them to respond to. They move according to what the culture shames them into doing, not what they actually believe or want to do as men. So that's the separation between the performative masculinity and the sovereign masculinity, right? The performative masculinity is how you it's like you're Superman, right? And you put on your Superman outfit to go save the world, or you put on your construction outfit to go maintain the structure of society. You put on your fireman outfit to go put out a fire. You put out your police uniform to go stop crime. After that, after your 8 to 12 hour shift is done, who are you? What is your sovereign masculinity? Is your sovereign masculinity based upon society tells you to be, or is it based upon how you want to operate? Right? So when certain things happen, like when a man gets disrespected or embarrassed, instead of reacting according to his own standards, he reacts based on how black culture says a man should react. And in many cases, black culture punishes or shames men who defend their own boundaries. Michael B. Jordan, on the red carpet for Creed 3, Michael B. Jordan was being interviewed by a woman who used to bully him back in school. During the interview, he called her out, told her basically, "You used to call me corny. Now you're interviewing me?" He checked her in a calm but confident way, not angry, just firm. But after that moment, a lot of people online, even in black culture, shamed him for responding. They said things like, "You're insecure. He should have kept it player. He shouldn't have said anything." That's a way for black men. So let me put my face on the screen. In martial arts, right, we call that defanging the snake. So now you're defanging the masculine male ability to defend himself and check that woman before the world, because this is Michael B. Jordan is a high performing man. You know what I'm saying? So now if he's doing it, a lot of black men gonna say, "Oh shit, so I'm supposed to check these hoes." Not a random chick you don't know, right? But a chick who used to know you, that was fucking with you and bullying you in school and now wants to have access to you, you're supposed to check her. Hey, you don't get access to me. Right? So that's what they were doing. They were defanging black men. Right? So you could keep giving respect and whatsoever. It goes according to the unspoken Negro contract, where black men got to validate and appease black women regardless of if she did good, regardless if she's a good woman or not, and regardless if she respects him or not. That's what I'm saying. These same people would have labeled him a square when he was younger. Now tried to tell him that he was wrong to defend himself when faced with a woman who disrespected him in the past. That's the contradiction. Black men are told to be confident and stand up for themselves, but when they actually do it, they get shamed for not being cool enough about it or keeping it player. Another example is Jonathan Majors and Megan Good. They were at an event and Megan hugged another male actor, a full jumping hug, wrapping her arms and legs around the nigga. Major didn't say anything, but the look on his face said it all. She knew she crossed the line and people could see it. But again, when the clip went viral, black culture clowned Jonathan Majors for even looking bothered. People said he should have kept it player. He looks insecure. He's just not serious enough. Now, I get it. At the time, Jonathan Majors, he just went through a bullshit situation. And I guess he couldn't react how he wanted to react because he's trying to get back into the good graces of Hollywood. So he couldn't react how he wanted to react if he was going to react at all because of the case he just went through. Right? And that case vilified Jonathan Majors. It made him look toxic, and he lost a lot of work and money for that. Right? So, basically, a man showing emotional boundaries or visible disapproval is seen as weakness in today's culture. Right? Same thing happened to what's this nigga, Swiss Beats, and what's the chick name? That big old bowling ball head bitch. What's her name? Alicia Keys. When Alicia Keys was up there, allowed herself to be groped up and hugged up by whatever this nigga name is. I forgot this nigga name. And then Swiss Beats came up with that fucking response, that keeping the player response. I'm trying to be insecure because this black culture tells me to be this. He a whole Muslim. A Muslim not supposed to let that happen. See what I mean about picking women that align with you and align with where you want to go? How Swiss speaks, how are you a Muslim, but you picked a chick that's not a Muslim? That's a side chick. Alicia Keys is a side bitch. Oh. Just because she's pretty don't mean she's not a side bitch. There's a lot of pretty side hoes out here. But again, right? So, the core problem, you can't build masculinity of what society shames you into doing. And that's what's been happening to a lot of successful black men. They've been retrained by the culture to suppress their natural masculine reaction. If a man checks a woman, he's called insecure. If he enforces standards, he's controlling. If he expects respect, he's toxic. If he walks away, he's bitter. That's the conditioning. Black men are told that being masculine means being unbothered, chill, or cool. But really, what's being pushed is complacency and acceptance of disrespect, right? So that's what that is. This is how black culture, men who are disciplined, polite, or focused get called corny. Men who are reckless, hypersexual, dysfunctional get labeled real or edgy. Women follow their labeling system, often gravitating toward what the culture rewards and mocking what the culture shames. So the cycle keeps going. The good or square black man gets disrespected or overlooked. The dysfunctional one gets celebrated or desired. Then women say there are no good men left. Meanwhile, the culture itself trains men to stop standing on principle, to blend in and keep it player instead of standing firm, right? And that's the thing, right, with women and society. Society and culture tends to have a bigger influence or stronger influence over the individual men. And because the men are fractured or fractioned or fractured, there's no brotherhood of black men. You don't know how to shift that culture yourself. Now, we're going to go into that later. The result, successful black men like Michael B. Jordan, Jonathan Majors, and even Steph Curry represent what it looks like when men succeed publicly, but are misunderstood or undermined culturally. These men have high value in the real world, fame, money, influence, but low average within black culture standards of masculinity. This is why I'll tell black men who are not celebrities, but you're highly successful about business. You're considered a square by black culture standards. Black culture is not for you to be, man. And then black culture wants to complain about, when you marry a white woman, you take the resources over there. Why would you niggas want a square's resources? Why would you want a brother who you lame as square or don't respect to give you resources? Again, that's according to the unspoken Negro contract. Why? Because black culture doesn't just measure a man by discipline and leadership. It measures him by how player he looks while being disrespected. So in many cases, even when these men do the right thing, they're told they're wrong because black culture has redefined what respect looks like for men and from women. So, and you can program a woman's attraction based on the culture, based on the reward and punishment thing in culture and social hereditary, right? When a man can't move from his own identity, his sovereign masculinity, he becomes a puppet of the culture. When culture rewards disrespect, men start to fear correction. When culture shames boundaries, women lose respect. And when men stop checking disrespect, relationships lose balance. All right? So now we're going into the meat. The edge archetype in black culture. All right? My fault. Within black culture, the edge has become a defining metric for male desirability. Men who possess this edge, whether through danger, rebellion, or dominance, are often perceived as authentic, masculine, and uncompromising. This archetype includes figures like Future, King Von, Lil Durk, and other broader gangster bad boy model. Even though their lifestyles are chaotic or self-destructive, they embody sovereign autonomy. They live by their own rules, not the expectations of society or black culture at large. What edge represents? The edge is not just style or attitude, it's a psychological marker. It represents a man's rejection of external control. In this context, the edgy man refuses to conform. He asserts his dominance unapologetically. He defines masculinity on his own terms. He would check, correct, and discipline his woman if she steps out of alignment. Even if his world is reckless or unstable, he is seen as standing firm in who he is, which creates a sense of gravitational power. So while his environment may be destructive, his energy communicates strength, danger, and authenticity. And that's what's perceived as edge. Right? There's a couple layers to that, and we're going to break it down later on. Oh, I didn't fix this properly. Okay, maybe I did. Right? The nature of his autonomy. This kind of man operates from a self-authored code, his sovereign masculinity, right? His own moral compass, no matter how distorted. He says, I'll live and die by my rules. That autonomy becomes intoxicating, especially in a world where most men are conditioned to submit to systems, trends, or social expectations. Women interpret this as masculine independence, even when it's morally off-center. So in short, dysfunction aside, autonomy itself is magnetic. Relationship dynamics with the edge archetype. When it comes to women, these men often project the following structure. Expectation, the woman must align to his world, not the other way around. Correction, if she disrespects him or crosses his boundaries, she gets checked immediately. Earning, she has to earn her way into his emotional or social space. This masculine structure, even when misused, still creates a dynamic of earned access and submission through respect or fear, not entitlement. And ironically, this enforcement of a hierarchy creates a sense of excitement, danger, and dominance that feeds attraction. Right? Contrast. The square safe archetype. Opposite to this is the square lame archetype. The man who plays by the rules, avoids risk, and seeks peace or approval. In modern Black culture, these men are socially unuseful but romantically undervalued. They're seen as insurance policies, the safe option when the edged men have damaged or exhausted a woman emotionally. The culture subconsciously trains them to be the fallback plan, not the first choice. Let me reread that properly. Read it slowly and concise. Opposite to this is the square or lame archetype. The man who plays by the rules, avoids risk, and seeks peace or approval. In modern Black culture, these men are socially useful but romantically undervalued. They're seen as insurance policies, the safe option, when the edge men have damaged or exhausted a woman emotionally. The culture subconsciously trains them to be a fallback plan, not the first choice. Thus, when the edge men fail them, the squares are expected to heal them, not lead them. This is part of the unspoken Negro contract in Black culture, right? And I think most of y'all already know that. Carlton from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is a classic misread archetype. He's labeled a square, but in reality, he had more self-definition and sovereignty than most of the characters around him. Key observations: Carlton knew who he was and didn't apologize for it. He didn't give a shit that you didn't like, that you called him square for liking what was the nigga called? Barry Bartolo? I forgot what that nigga was called. That he likes to dance. So he still did that dance. He didn't care. This is like, I give Carlton Banks more respect between him and what was his father's name again? Philip. Between him and Philip Banks, I give those two men, him, Philip Banks, and the butler, I give those three the most respect out of that whole show. Because Carlton Banks, especially because he stood on business for what he was and what he believed in. Which, by technicality, he's the true bad boy. Because a bad boy doesn't follow society. He doesn't care what people think about him. Carlton Banks is that. All right? Carlton knew who he was and didn't apologize for it. He wasn't trying to perform a copy of the hood image. When disrespected, like in the scene with Vivica A. Fox, he checked it confidently and directly. That made him paradoxically the most sovereign man in that environment. Carlton wasn't lacking edge, he had intellectual edge and moral backbone, but because he didn't fit the street archetype, the culture mislabeled him. This shows that a real definition of edge isn't violence or danger, it's self-possession and masculine certainty, meaning that you're certain about your identity and you're certain about who you are and you're in control of yourself, your own autonomy. You feel me? When Black women and the culture at large glorify the edge archetype, What they're really drawn to is certainty. He knows who he is. Control. He sets the tone of the relationship. Autonomy. He doesn't follow. So don't listen to women that say you're controlling. You're toxic because you're controlling. I'm gonna break this down too. This word down. The control thing factor. Autonomy. He doesn't follow rules. Energy. So autonomy means he follows his own rules, right? Because you have autonomy when you want to follow societal rules, and you have autonomy when you want to follow your own rules. The thing about following the rules of society, does society that you're following lead you to a destructive path or to a righteous path? When you take it to the Victorian era, society was leading men and women to a righteous path. When you get it to today, in modern day society, society is leading you to a destructive path. It's leading women to be 3 or 4s, and then it's leading men to be in relationships where he's being disrespected for his work and his value. Right? So at that point, that's when your sovereign masculinity is supposed to kick in and say, wait a minute. Society's telling me to do this, but it's not respecting me for doing this. It's shaming me for doing this. And it's teaching me that this is something of virtue to keep doing this. You know what? I'm going to walk away from that hierarchy. Right? Hierarchy, he enforces respect. Energy, he has drive and danger, right? These are masculine traits but these are masculine traits, but they have been warped in dysfunctional packaging because that's the form in which most women have learned to recognize masculine authority. Foundational layer summary. Edge equals autonomy, dominance, control, and self-definition. Square equals predictability, safety, and social conformity. Edge, men live by their own laws, even if destructive. Square men live by cultural laws, even if it costs them respect. When women confuse dysfunction and dominance, because in the absence of real masculine leadership, danger starts to look like authority, right? So let me look at this. Let me read this again. Women confuse dysfunction with dominance, because in the absence of real masculine leadership, danger starts to look like authority, right? Remember that. The psychological culture, why women equate danger with edge. Core premise. The attraction to edge is both psychological and cultural. It's not just what women like. Women like bad boys. It's their emotional wiring has been shaped by a culture that rewards rebellion and danger and struggle as signs of authenticity and masculine authority. So when you mix psychologically imprinting what excites a woman emotionally with cultural conditioning, what her environment celebrates as manhood, you create a distorted formula for desire, right? I think Uncle Rick, shout out to Uncle Rick. I think when he was on the cruise season panel, when they was doing panels back, I don't know what happened to them. He said something about that. I can't believe I remember that from way back. He said something about women have to reprogram what they're attracted to, and that's very true, right? It's very true right here. So take this. So ladies, look at this. Men, you also look at this. You can program a woman's attraction based upon the cultural condition. You culturally condition her and what excites her, and you reward her for that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you understand that. The raw emotion of edge. Let's go into the psychological part first. The internal emotional reaction that women feel toward the edge. Adrenaline response, emotional chemistry. Women often mistake emotional intensity for emotional depth. Edge, men stimulate adrenaline, tensions, and mystery, all emotions tied to attraction, right? When a man is unpredictable, it triggers anticipation, and anticipation releases dopamine, the same chemical linked to pleasure and desire. So danger equals excitement, and excitement equals attraction. In other words, chaos creates chemistry. Remember in your Bible, it says in the beginning, the earth was chaotic, and then there came light, law, and balance. The man who doesn't care what others think seems to in control of himself. Control and certainty are core masculine traits. Even if he's wrong, a man who acts with authority can feel more masculine than a man who's technically right but hesitant. So when a woman says he has that energy, what she really means is he makes decisions without fear. That dominance, that's edge, right? On a primal level, Women are wired to seek protection, but in modern society, that protection isn't from lions. It's from social pressure, emotional chaos, or other people. A man with edge signals I can protect myself from the world. By extension, that reads I can protect you. Even if he can't protect the symbol of power triggers the feeling of safety. So the trick. Let me slow down. My fault. Even if he can't, the symbol of power triggers the feeling of safety. So paradoxically, the man who creates danger can also make her feel protected because he can control that danger. Cultural layer: how Black culture reinforces the edge standard. How Black culture reinforces the edge standard. Now let's move to the cultural layer. The social side that tells women who to respect and desire. And pain as proof of realness, Black culture has long associated struggle with authenticity. If you suffered, you're real. If you're too peaceful, too stable, or too clean cut, you're seen as disconnected from the Black experience. So, that's another issue in Black culture, right? You got to be dysfunctional to be considered a real nigga. So the man with edge, even if he's reckless, looks real. The man who's stable, quiet, or strategic looks fake. That's cultural programming, and it's powerful. From the 90s onward, in hip hop, R&B, and movies like Juice, Belly, Paid in Full, and even Power, shaped the male archetype of dominance through danger. Every major Black male sex symbol since Tupac has been marketed as rebellious, dangerous, and passionate, flawed but powerful. Meanwhile, the Carlton, the Steve Urkel, the good man, or the corporate brother. And you know what's so funny? Carlton is actually the one in a more stable relationship than Will Smith. I forgot Carlton, the actual Carlton. What is his name again? Let me look up his name right quick. Carlton Banks. What's his name again? Alfonso. Yeah, Alfonso. I don't know. Alfonso sounds like a Latin name. Hold on. Let me show y'all something. Let me show y'all something right quick. Let me show y'all something right quick. Alfonso is Trinidadian. Wait. Alfonso is Trinidadian. Alfonso Ribeiro was born in New York on September 21st, 1971. Alfonso family is from Trinidad and Tobago, although rumor has been that he's of Dominican descent. He has stated in an interview that this is false. Neither he nor his family is from Dominican Republic. They originate from Trinidad and Tobago. I think Ashley Banks, I think they said she was from... No. Because she's an Ali, right? But she looks Panamanian, right? So Carlton Banks is a tether. Wife. Let's look at his wife. Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. So he married 2 white women. He grew up into another white woman. Look at his family. Look at this nigga family, boy. He is happy. Look at him. He is happy. Oh, my cat's is bugging out right now. He is happy. He married another Becky. He said, man, I ain't gonna get away from that Becky, that bunny rabbit loving. Ain't nothing gonna stop me from this bunny loving rabbit. So this bunny loving. So I did not know this brother was Trinidadian. I did not know this brother was Trinidadian. And he had the most game out of everybody on that show. Oh, man. Shout out to Alfonso. Right? See, I don't like this nigga either. Black culture don't like this nigga either. Who's all? Let me see this. Ollie Shelton. What's his background? All right, so never mind. Alfonso is a tether or of tether descent. Anyway, meanwhile, Carlton, Steve Urkel, or the corporate brother is rarely portrayed as desirable unless he's saved by a woman who softens him. Right. So for decades, women are conditioned to associate masculinity with pain, danger, and dominance equals masculine authority, masculine authenticity. My bad. In a society that often emasculates black men politically and economically, rebellion becomes the only visible proof of masculine agency. Sort of culturally, subconsciously rewards men who say, I'll live by my own rules even if it kills me. That's why gangster energy and player energy overlap. Both are declarations of freedom and defiance, and since women are drawn to masculine freedom, they confuse rebellion with leadership. Right. Combined effect, the psychological cultural fusion. When you merge the two layers, the emotional chemistry, psychological, and the cultural condition environment, you get this formula. Danger plus confidence plus defiance equals edge, attraction, trigger. Predictability plus kindness plus structure equals safety, friend zone trigger. I bet you dating coaches can't give you this. And I'm not charging you $5,000. All I'm saying is donate something. Donate $10 or $50, something to the work. Right? So even though safety is what women say they want, danger is what they emotionally respond to because the culture trained their feelings to respond that way. Ironically, the very men who embodied edge, gangster, bad boys, or rebels often live in the most dangerous or unstable conditions, yet they feel freer than the men who follow society's rules. And women reading that freedom emotionally see those men as more real, more in control, more masculine. And to you brothers, let those women have those men. It's not your job. It's not your job to teach a bitch or to show a bitch why she should pick you. It's her job to pick the man that she wants to be with, not your job to convince her to be picked by you. All right? This becomes an emotional trap because authenticity gets confused with chaos and discipline gets mistakes for weakness, right? The outcome, the culture glorifies rebellion over responsibility. The psychological glorifies excitement over peace. The result, women are drawn to chaotic men with structure and repelled by stable men without authority. This creates a paradox where safe men get disrespected and dangerous men get desired. And see, now, the thing about that is that the Victorian age of men, and even when you go back to Red Redemption days, right, the cowboy days, right, they were a hybrid of both. They were gentlemen and they were dangerous too. So I think the dangerous component got tricked out of men from society, and that's what made us more predictable, right? So we have to have a combination of being both dangerous and a gentleman at the same time, because the Victorian age of men were very dangerous. They would make us look like teddy bears or kittens, right? The male response system: how men adapt to a broken cultural formula. When women and the broader black culture glorify edge, the autonomy, danger, and dominance energy, it forces men to make one of three adaptations: imitate the edge to gain respect or attraction. They suppress their masculinity to appear non-threatening and safe. They detach entirely from the dating market and focus on power, wealth, or purpose outside of women. Each of these adaptations comes with consequences: the psychological, social, and cultural. Right? The male adaptations. The performance edge mimic archetype. Some men, especially those who are naturally safe or intelligent, feel pressure to imitate this function to gain social or romantic validation. They might adjust their speech to sound more hood, wear aggression or apathy as an armor, treat women with control, disrespect to seem masculine. Adopt rebellion not from belief but from insecurity. They're performing masculinity instead of living it. So instead of being authentic masculine, they become actors in the edge show. And the tragic part is they gain temporary respect but lose long-term peace because they're trying to maintain a personality that's not native to them. Right. The safe men, the submissive archetype. Then you have the men who go to the opposite direction. The safe men who believe that to be accepted, they must appease women and suppress masculine authority. They think if I'm soft, patient, emotionally open, and let her lead, she'll appreciate me for not being toxic. But what really happens is they lose respect from the very woman they're trying to please. They become emotionally predictable and easy to manipulate. They offer safety but not excitement or dominance. And in the female attraction system, safety without authority equals boredom. This is why men like Steph Curry or even Russell Wilson often get categorized, not because they lack masculinity, but because they don't enforce it. They lead kindly but not firmly, and culture doesn't respect kindness without command, right? The withdrawal men, the sovereign outsider. Finally, some men don't imitate or submit. They withdraw. They leave the dating market, detach from the cultural conversation, and focus on building their own world. Business, body, faith, discipline. These are often men who've been burnt by the system or see through it completely. They say if the culture doesn't respect leadership, I'll build my own culture. This group often includes traditional men, passport men, or self defined masculine men who don't chase validation. They pursue power and purpose. They're not emotionally detached, they're strategically selective. And this is the sovereign masculinity right here, doing their own thing, right? The emotional impact on men. Across these adaptations, the consistent thread is frustration, because regardless of which path a man takes, imitate, submit, or withdraw, he's wrestling with the same cultural pressure. You're only respected when you're either dangerous or disposable. So men end up feeling that their genuine masculinity is never enough. Their discipline and structure are undervalued. The leadership is punished unless it's tied to dysfunction. This creates a silent emotional fatigue in men, especially black men who want to lead from peace and structure, not rebellion and chaos. The psychological trap, performing instead of leading. When men starts performing masculinity, whether that's pretending to be edgy or pretending to be passive, he disconnects from his sovereign core. He's no longer responding to his own instincts, he's responding to social algorithms. And once you're in that cycle, every move becomes reactive instead of directive. For example, Michael B. Jordan checks on a woman who disrespected him, and the culture calls him sensitive. Jonathan Majors gives his woman a look of disapproval, and the culture calls him controlling. But when Future or Blueface degrades women publicly, the same culture calls it real. So what's the message do men get from this? Don't enforce respect unless you're toxic enough to get away with it. Let me read that again. So what message do men get from this? Don't enforce respect unless you're toxic enough to get away with it. That's the masculine trap. And as long as you're in black culture, as a black man, this is the field you're going to have to play. So you have to make that decision. The cultural loop, how men and women reinforce each other. This is the cycle. Women glorify dysfunction as masculine edge. Men imitate it or suppress themselves to survive. Culture rewards the dysfunction through attention, gossip, or validation. Stable masculinity gets devalued. Then the next generation grow up believing that structure equals weakness and chaos equals confidence. So the very foundation that should be masculine, discipline, boundaries, consistency, and becomes feminine. Oh, let me read this slowly. My fault. I got to learn how to read slowly. Then the next generation grows up believing that structure equals weakness and chaos equals confidence. So the very foundation that should be masculine, discipline, boundaries, consistency, becomes feminized. And the very traits that should be feminine, chaos, unpredictability, emotion, get rebranded as strong, right? Strong black woman because she's more masculine and whatever. So the real masculine edge. The irony is that true masculine edge was never about rebellion or danger. It was about clarity, decisiveness, and sovereignty. The old masculine standard said, I'm not ruled by women, by emotions, by women, or by culture. I am ruled by my code. That's what separates the men with real edge, Carlton in his own identity, or Shango type men in my own archetype system, because I built a couple male archetypes, right? From the men with performative edge, future blueface and toxic rebels, right? True edge equals calm dominance. Fake edge equals chaotic rebellion. Now, future blueface and guys like that, they're actually being themselves. That's actually who they are. I'm saying so. It's not really fake, right? I just use those names as an example for dudes that copy them. Closing observation. Black men today are living through a masculine identity crisis, not because they lack masculine examples, but because the culture rewards the wrong ones. The solution isn't to become more dangerous or more nice, it's to become more sovereign. Because the only real edge left in the world for the performance is authenticity backed by authority. Right? Definition of the layer. This layer explores how women emotionally respond to men with edge compared to men who suffer safely, who offer safety, particularly when within black culture. It's where psychology, attraction, and culture overlap. The edge gives emotional charge, excitement, unpredictability, dominance, while safety gives emotional security, stability, predictability, and comfort. In this context, black women's attraction to edge is not random. It's a reflection of emotional conditioning, social influence, and generational trauma tied to ideas of power, manhood, and protection, right? So there's a lot of programming going on, right? Emotional charge theory. The human brain is wired to seek stimulation. Edgy men activate adrenaline and dopamine through tension, unpredictability, and dominance. Safe men activate serotonin and oxytocin, comfort hormones. Overexposure to instability or trauma normalize stimulation as love rather than peace as love, right? Trauma bonding and familiar chaos. Many women raised around dysfunction mistakes chaos for chemistry. So I want y'all to pay attention to that, right? This is edgy in the context of black women in our culture, right? Edgy men activate adrenaline and dopamine through tension, unpredictability, and dominance. Safe men activate serotonin and oxytocin, comfort zones. Overexposure to instability or trauma normalize stimulation as love rather than peace as love, right? So this is how their attraction or whatever they feel is perception is being wired, right? Trauma bonding and familiar chaos. Many women raised around dysfunction, mistakes, chaos for chemistry, right? If a woman grew up seeing her mother chase or fight over unstable men, her brain associates that tension with real love. So when she meets a stable man, her body doesn't feel the same rush. It feels boring. Masculine polarity. So now what I mean by that, right? In black culture, a lot of black men and black women, they're raised watching their mothers give respect to the player, the gangbanger, and the thug. And then at the same time, watch their mothers and aunties and female cousins, older cousins, disrespect traditional men, run game on traditional men, disrespect them, all that stuff, right? Cheat on him. So that's your training, you're wiring what you're teaching what's reward and what's punishment, and that's tempering her brain and what she's attracted to, right? So she's going to respond based upon that. Masculine polarity. Edge signals power, autonomy, danger, dominance. Safety signals compliance, softness, and predictability. The irony, women say they want nice guys, but biologically responds to men who create polarity, a clear masculine energy, right? Name some dating coaches that are breaking this down like that and not charging you. Like they're going to charge you $50,000 for this information, right? The black male image in media has long been split into two categories. The rebel, Tupac, DMX, 50 Cent, and the respectable safe men, Carlton, Will Smith, Barack Obama. The rebel archetype has always been coded as authentically black, while the safe man was called whitewashed or bougie. This creates a subconscious divide. Power and passion were linked to danger, while safety was linked to submission or whiteness. Social conditioning. The edgy man becomes a social trophy, a representation of being desired by the alpha within their community. Women gain social credibility when chosen by the man. Other women fear or respect. Safe men often become invisible until women risk tolerance runs out. After emotional exhaustion or motherhood, single mama. Music and media reinforcement. From 90s R&B to 2010s trap music. Women were fed images of love tied to struggle, ride or die, hold him down. He might cheat, but he's real. The feminine ego began to equate chaotic loyalty with depth of love. So this is how a lot of shit's getting programmed, right? Social manifestation. The black community's reward system. Edge equals excitement plus dominance. High reward socially and sexually. Safety equals reliability plus structure. Low reward until later life stages. Rehabilitation fantasy. Many women believe their love can transform an edgy man into a safe one. This fantasy keeps them emotionally attached to dysfunction under the illusion of purpose. I can change him. You already know that one. Masculine discipline as the missing middle ground. The true masculine sovereignty blends edge and order with order. But because the community really rewards balanced men firm yet stable, those men often get overlooked until women mature and self-destruct from chasing chaos. Tell me I ain't broke down the community and the culture. The feminine response to edge reveals that what women may call preference is often emotional addiction. It's not just what they like, that they like bad boys. It's the emotional instability feels familiar, validating, and socially rewarding in certain environments. Meanwhile, safety through those necessary for healthy love often feels emotionally flat unless the man pairs it with sovereignty, direction, and boundaries. In other words, edge without chaos equals leadership. Edge with chaos equals dysfunction. Safety without edge equals boredom. Let me read that again. Edge without chaos equals leadership. Edge with chaos equals dysfunction. Safety without edge equals boredom. So that's the thing, right? Layer 5. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, right? Core premise was this. Modern media, from reality TV to Instagram, TikTok, and hip-hop coverage, has simplified the edge archetype to extreme levels. What was once organic social preference has been algorithmically. So when you're watching my videos, make sure to take a break, go eat something, go drink something, and come back and watch the show, man. It's a lot of game I'm kicking. Y'all gotta expand your you gotta expand your attention span, man. Right? So what was once organic social preference has been algorithmically reinforced, creating feedback loops that exaggerate dysfunction and glorify chaos. Mechanisms of amplification, visibility bias. Edgy men are more proactive and therefore more visible. Social media rewards reaction, controversy, and engagement. Viral posts disproportionately feature conflict, aggression, or bold behavior, not calm, stable leadership. Attention is currency. Likes, shares, and comments create a dopamine loop, both for men performing edge and women for consuming it. The louder, the more chaotic a man's behavior, the faster the attention grows. Safe men rarely go viral unless associated with drama. Like, myself. Like, if I started coming out here and started doing some wild shit, then my channel get picked up. Then I get billions of views and shit, right? Like Charleston White. Charleston White explained that. Right? Charleston White was like, yo, when I was a square or a regular dude, nobody paid attention to me until I started adapting to what the culture likes, and his success is apparent, right? Nurture framing by media. Headlines, podcasts, and social commentary often celebrate the rebellion while criticizing discipline or peace. Example: Michael B. Jordan checking a bully from his past, criticized as sensitive. Future's erratic behavior praises authenticity. This skews the perception of masculine value for the audience. Social proof loops. Black culture and social networks reinforce what is trending, which usually highlights chaos and excitement. Women see these trends and internalize them as signals of desirability, even subconsciously. Safe, sovereign men are often underappreciated until the edgy cycle burns out for the women, right? That's when the women start crying and coming to the line. You got to forgive me for my past. Bitch, get out my face. Reinforcements of dysfunction as status. Men with edge are rewarded socially and monetarily, which threatens their behavioral incentive to stay edgy. Women are rewarded socially for participating in validating the chaos, gaining credibility, reliability, and social proof. Undermining sovereign masculinity. Men like Steph Curry, Jonathan Majors, and Michael B. Jordan, who operate from discipline and stability, often receive public critique or ridicule. Their real masculine authority is misread or undervalued, which discourages men from embracing genuine sovereignty. Cycle of misaligned attraction. Media intensifies the psychological pull toward chaotic edge, while diminishing visibility of stable, sovereign men. Women emotionally chase excitement, often mislabeling it as depth, while overlooking security paired with authority. Right? Closing observation. The system is self-reinforcing. Edge men gain attention, women are drawn. Culture validates, safe men are overlooked. Without awareness, this loop continues across generations, defining what is seen as real masculinity and desire. Layer 6, sovereignty rules and female competition. Core premise, men should operate according to their own identity, not fit archetypes, Carlton, Future, Russell Wilson, etc., or cultural expectations. Masculinity isn't about imitation, it's about sovereignty, boundaries, and self-defined authority. Attraction is strength when men create barriers and rules for access, teaching women how to respect them and compete to earn relationship. Right? The competition thing, because you're not putting expectations on women and they're not competing for you, that's what makes you predictable. That's what makes them think that they got you and they don't have to compete for you. The very thing that they call you toxic for doing is the key to getting them that gets them, that shows you them that you're edgy, and it gets them attracted to you because they gotta work for you. Right? Male sovereignty. Be yourself first. Cultivate your own identity, skills, and purpose for your own growth, not for women. Set boundaries. In other words, like, when you're investing into yourself and you have your own home, you like certain foods, guess what? You bought your own home. So whether a woman is with you or not, you got your own place to rest and sleep. Right? When you have a skill set, like a construction worker, you're always going to be making money or be able to put food on your table because you got skills. It's like when you teach a man to fish, he'll feed a village. Right? Set boundaries. And even when you talk about having game, being able to approach and talk to women, dress them fly. Once you always a fly nigga for you, you're always going to be a fly nigga for you. When you lose a bitch because you got the skills to talk to women, you can always get another bitch because you got the skill set to talk to women. And the skill set should enhance who you already are, not mimic somebody else's skill set. I'm going to say that again. Your mouthpiece game should enhance who you are, not mimic somebody else's game. I'm going to say that again. Your mouthpiece game should enhance your identity and who you are, not mimic somebody else's identity. I hope you understood that. Set boundaries, clearly define what access women have to your time, energy, and resources. Enforce your standards. Checking, correcting, and holding women accountable is part of creating respect and attraction. The very thing that modern day niggas tell you not to do is what creates the attraction and chaos in a relationship. You go on a date, and if the chick really fucking with you and like you, but she disrespect you and shit, hey, whoa, what we doing? Where'd that come from? Say you sorry. If she don't want to say sorry, end the date. But when she says sorry, is she in the more apologetic, feminine type nature with the big googly eyes? You go, look here, bitch. You know I don't like that. Don't ever do this shit again. Yes, daddy. That get her pussy wet. Key principle: respect is earned through competition and alignment, not freely given. Female response to sovereignty. Women are attracted to men who enforce rules because it activates dopamine and chase mechanisms. The very thing that niggas tell you not to do is what's necessary to activate that dopamine and that chase mechanism in women. That's why they don't want y'all to do it. That's why I call it defanging the snake, right? When a man corrects or checks a woman, she perceives him as a figure of authority and leadership, creating emotional tension that enhances desire. Women are willing to compete and follow the rules, are the ones who will align with his life and energy, right? The attraction factor. Some men naturally have it, a charisma or X factor that draws women without effort. Example, Michael Jackson and Prince. That is I think I was watching him. I think Angry Man said this yesterday. And when he said it, I knew that instantly from growing up in East New York, Brooklyn, and in New York, right? Growing up, I knew niggas that I'd seen some ugly Jamaican niggas. ugly, dark-skinned Jamaican niggas that can pull a pretty light-skinned nigga bitch all day, every day. And it was just, you know how Jamaican niggas is and they swag. They wear loud colors, they're aggressive and smooth at the same time, and they can take anybody bitch from me. I know dark-skinned niggas that can take Chris Brown's bitches. You feel me? And there's certain dark-skinned niggas who can do that. And there's certain light-skinned niggas who can do it and who can't do it. And then, there's men like me that's in the balance, right? There's certain women I can pull, and there's certain women I just can't pull, right? Now, I believe I have overall charisma for me, right? Because I could draw a lot of women to me. I've never had an issue getting women or talking to women or pulling women. I never had that issue, I think, in my life. Or maybe I never paid attention to it, but I don't think I ever had that issue. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I ever had to go above and beyond to get a bitch. I think the mistake I made, like I said before, was when I got into a relationship the first time within that 1 year. And I was simping. And in the second relationship, the women didn't respect the value I was bringing in. You feel me? But I never had an issue. I don't think I've ever had an issue or whatever like that. But I know there's certain women I just can't pull. And there's men who are better than me that can pull those women. And at the same time, there's those men who are better than me can't pull, that I can pull. It's just what it is, right? Others must rely on sovereignty plus boundaries plus standards to create attraction. Key point. This is a point to the X factor thing. Attraction is subjective and segmented. A man might be highly desirable by one group of women and ignored by another. It's just what it is. Like you just gotta find what women are aligned to you. That's all it is. The only problem with that now is women have to it's either the women are going to pick the programming and the influence as I described earlier, or they're going to pick the man. So and the influence a lot of times override the man, and that's something that individual men cannot control, right? The problem with ignoring sovereignty. Michael B. Jordan and Lori Harvey. Jordan didn't fully teach, check, or enforce expectations in the relationship. Women who are not willing to compete may take access for granted when no boundaries are set. Black culture pressures may shame men for enforcing authority, creating predictable access that reduces attraction. So, this is what would happen to Michael B. Jordan, and I think they was actually doing that for a promotion of a movie, I think for Creed. So that may have been what we saw may have been surface level, but for the sake of argument, if Michael B. Jordan, I think, had set some boundaries and enforced authority, he would have fell out with black culture. So, border observation. Men operating strictly within black culture expectations are often constrained. I think around the time he was doing Black Panther too, as well, right? Are often constrained by norms that undervalue their sovereignty. Expanding options beyond culture. Dating women from other backgrounds allow men to find partners willing to compete and respect their authority. All right? So, black men, the passport bros did this, and passport bros got shamed for doing that. They got shamed for exercising their sovereign masculinity and looking towards other women of other countries because that has always been masculinity. Genghis Khan has done it. Any man on history, it's never been seen as weak for men to go find women outside of his environment. But men speaking out their ass on YouTube, shame black men for doing that because they're just full of shit. Strategic takeaways. Operating according to your own identity. Don't imitate archetypes or follow cultural scripts. Set standards and barriers. Access is earned, not assumed. Teach respect through action. Correction, accountability, and guidance are attraction triggers. Recognize the attraction factors. Some men naturally have it, others cultivate it via boundaries and sovereignty. So in my opinion, I think you can cultivate the X factor. It's just that your X factor has to come from you, right? You have to put more work. It's like the game, right? The game has a spiritual mechanism to it that when you put into it, it rewards you. right? So example, it's like when you play 1,000 hours of Halo, right? And you all you use is the sniper rifle in Halo video game. And every time now you played 1,000 hours of that. Now every time you pick up that sniper, you just pow, 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 because you put work in the game, and the game rewarded you your skill, rewarded you with skills. So I think the X factor can be cultivated. It's just that men have to cultivate it through standing on their own principles and their own lands and all the other good stuff. You know what I'm saying? You got to cultivate it from your own internal foundation. Right. Now you can use the external world as a reference to kind of take like a hammer and shape your internal order, meaning that you can keep what works and then throw away what doesn't work. But remember, these things are to enhance who you already are and bring out who you already are, not to become who you are, not what I should say. The outside world shouldn't now substitute who you are. It should be used as tool to enhance who you are already, right? If y'all understand that. So let me read this again, right? Operate according to your own identity. Don't imitate archetypes or follow cultural scripts, right? Teach respect through action, correction, accountability, and guidance or attraction triggers. Recognize the attraction factor. So anytime you see a woman say, I don't like men that talk about accountability, this is a woman that wants control over that relationship, right? Recognize the attraction factor. Some men naturally have it, others cultivate it via boundaries and sovereignty. Expand your dating pool. Avoid being trapped by cultural expectations that limit options, like shaming the passport bros. Right? This is me breaking down the control factor, right? Or the misuse of it. Women often call men controlling not because they're abusive, but because men enforce their boundaries, rules, and structure. The label controlling is a social mechanism to shame men back into predictable, safe, or submissive archetypes. The key issue: women want influence without submission, and when men don't yield, they weaponize the controlling label. Right? Mechanism of the misnomer or misuse of the word. Male sovereignty equals boundary enforcement. Men defines domain, time, energy, access, expectations. Women must either align with his structure or exit his domain. Female perception, edge versus control. If a man lives according to his own identity and rules, she perceives it as edge. If her influence is limited because he refuses to bend, she may label him controlling. Truth is, he is not controlling her. He's maintaining his own standards and boundaries and structure of his own house. So he's not controlling her. What it is the serpent in the garden wants to keep going into the garden and fucking up God's garden. Right? That's what that is. Culture conditioning. Women in culture are accustomed to men being predictable, safe, and accessible. Michael B. Jordan archetype. When men refuse to be predictable, he breaks the social contract, which triggers labeling, shaming, and compliments. This serves as a feedback mechanism to return men to square archetypes, right? Connection. So this is just like a summary breakdown. Layer A, the square archetype and the societal pressure, right? A square man is one who prioritizes predictability, safe, and social conformity, often at the cost of his self-respect. The problem arises when society rewards performative masculinity. Okay, my bad. The problem arises when society rewards performative masculinity, following the rules, being socially acceptable, but then disrespects the men for it. That's the problem with the performative identity thing, right? True masculinity aligns with law, structure, and order. But when society shifts the reward structure, men are penalized for integrity, right? Performative masculinity versus sovereign masculinity, which I did a video about this already. Performative masculinity, acting masculine to meet social expectations, not personal standards. Rewards social approval, temporary access, or status. Risk loss of self-respect if the reward is disrespect or manipulation, right? Sovereign masculinity, acting according to internal rules, identity and purpose. Rewards respect, authority, attraction from aligned women, right? Hold on, let me say this again. Let me read this slowly. The sovereign masculinity, according to internal rules, identity, and purpose, rewards respect, authority, attraction from aligned women, risk social backlash, or misunderstanding from peers' culture, but self-respect remains intact. Right. Um, I'm gonna give you an example of my life. Right. I have something called cardiomyopathy. It's a heart problem, and everybody in my life told me, "Yo, I was this issue. I couldn't work out, and I was at the time I was 400 pounds at the time. I couldn't work out. I couldn't do certain things. I had to take all these medications every day for the rest of my life, and the social pressure around me said every time I'm trying to go work out and walk to lose the weight, the social pressure reinforced by what the doctors were saying was saying I couldn't do it because of taking risk. But one day I took a risk and I said, fuck it. And I signed up for a martial arts gym. I told my instructor at the time what was going on, and in the next 9 months I lost 100 and I think 40 pounds, and after that I lost 50 more pounds, and I went from 400 pounds down to 190 something, and I took a risk, and I went against the social pressure at the time. Right, so I've always tapped into my own personal thinking rather than letting social print. If I did not make those moves, I would have never been a personal trainer. I would have never been a martial artist. I'd probably be still fat and obese today. I probably would have been dead. You feel me? So that's what that. I'm thankful that I always have my own internal compass. Right. Society can override male influence on women. Social heredity, peer influence, media, and cultural narratives teach women to disrespect or ignore men's authority. Women may align with society's version of behavior rather than their men's expectations. Without male solidarity or shared hierarchy, men are vulnerable to this influence, right? Male hierarchy and conflict. Player magnet archetypes. Exploit chaos, benefit from access to women, avoid accountability, often clash with traditional men because their incentives differ. Traditional square men value discipline, honesty, and long-term structure. Often marginalized socially because the players gain more immediate cultural rewards. Consequences of division. Lack of unity among men means no collective force to uphold standards or influence women's behavior. Society and culture can drag any man off course, reducing authority and respect for responsible men, right? Which is what's happening within Black culture. Key insight. Respect for men. Whether player, magnet, I don't know why I put magnet there, or traditional should be non-negotiable, right? So hold on. Let me read this properly. Respect for men, whether player, magnet, or traditional, should be non-negotiable. Women should not be allowed to disrespect responsible men, exploit men who are honest and accountable. That should be the overarching rule, bro. That all men, whether be player or traditional, should agree to. Cultural reinforcement of disrespect allows chaos to thrive and diminish male authority. Psychological of edge and sexual attraction. Edge isn't just rebellion or attitude, it's sexual polarity. It's that raw primal attraction response in women. So this is me breaking down edge even further, right? That can't be reasoned with, taught, or controlled by logic or social rules. When women say he doesn't have edge, they're often saying he doesn't turn me on. Breakdown, linguistic deception. Women use vague language like edge, vibe, or energy, chemistry to disguise primal attraction in a poetic or spiritual terms. But what they really mean is, I am not sexually stimulated by this man. This vagueness makes it hard for men to decode what women are actually saying. And that confusion is what drives manipulation or self-doubt in dating spaces, right? Biological interpretation. Mind you, men, so I'm going to get into it, don't worry. Attraction operates on instinct, not logic. It's not necessarily about looks, it's about how man's energy, tone, and authority activate her limbic system or her other systems. So when a man has edge, it means his masculine energy triggers her arousal system. When he lacks it, she feels emotionally safe, but not sexually charged. All right? So you got to do a balance of both. Psychological disorder element. There's a phenomenon known as I don't even know how to say this, and I'm not going to say it because it could be a spell. The attraction to dangerous or criminal men. Some women are psychologically drawn to chaos, aggression, or unpredictability because it creates a heightened emotional response that feels like passion. This isn't healthy. It's a trauma-bonding pattern, not genuine love or respect. So edge for some women is really dysfunction disguised as excitement. All right? The autonomy principle. Men often misunderstood women's attraction as a response to their behavior. But in truth, women respond to their own internal impulses. So what I mean by that is, right, when I say men often misunderstand women's attraction as a response to their behavior. So what I mean by that, women are not responding. Women are, just because she rejected your number or she faked on you on a date, it does not reflect your value of a man. It doesn't reflect who you are. It reflects who she is, right? And why would you care about a woman that flaked on your date? That wasn't the woman you were supposed to give your dick to, or time to, or money to, or resources to, right? Women respond to their own internal impulses. She's not a reflection of the man. She's a reflection of her own desire, traumas, and attraction. Therefore, a woman's choices reflect her psychology more than they reflect your value. When men understand this, they stop chasing validation and start screening for alignment and respect. The male sovereignty rule. A man should never twist himself into a pretzel trying to become what a woman are attracted to. Instead, he should remain centered in his identity and attract the woman who naturally find that polarity with him. That's what creates respect, submission, and genuine connection, not forced performance. So, in other words, I don't give a fuck if I approach a woman and she gets my number, or I don't get her number and she rejects me. I don't give a shit if she fakes on me on a date. Even if she gets on a date, that's one date where we had a good time, right? I now have to see if she's going to be consistent with that, right? If she's consistent with that, then we can go somewhere. Maybe that might mean she's a reflection of my value. But, I don't take the rejection on the date. Even if I get boxed from the chick, I don't take that as I don't really take that as like a reflection of me, right? Because she chose to give me the box at the time. You know what I'm saying? I don't really use that as a metrics or at least at the first interaction with that woman. I don't use that as a metrics as, yo, she really rocking with me like that, or this is a reflection of my value. You know what I'm saying? Edge isn't rebellion. Edge is polarity. The emotional voltage between male and female energy. The problem is modern women confuse sexual tension with chaos and danger. Right? Alignment, reflection, and ecosystem of masculine order, right? Core concept. A woman only becomes a reflection of a man when she's moving in harmony with his direction, structure, and influence. Once she moves outside of his order through disobedience, rebellion, or misalignment, she stops being his reflection and becomes a reflection of her own will. In other words, a woman is a reflection of a man she follows, not the man she dates. Right? You're going to be confused by that. What do I mean by that? See, women date men all day long that they don't like, that they don't respect. Right? But now, if she decides to follow you long term, like say you're dating her after a while, right? And she's respecting you, right? When she respects you on a date and she's consistent with you on a date, that's her following you. Now, when you say, hey, yo, babe, let's go to Ruth Chris one day, and she go with you. Then you say, hey, yo, babe, let's go to Golden Cross the next day. We're going to eat some jerk chicken and patty. And she go with you, and she don't complain. That's her following you, right? When you're taking her on a date to Ruth Chris, and then the next day, and then she disrespecting you on the date on Ruth Chris, and then you're running all over the place trying to take her to Starbucks and shit, that's not her following you. Or when you take her to Ruth Chris and you want to take her to Jamaican flavors or whatever, and she said, what may I do at Jamaican flavors? You don't take me at Ruth Chris. That's not her following you. So, masculinity operates through structure, order, and instructions. Femininity operates through reception, alignment, and harmony. When a woman When a woman receives a man's direction and moves with his boundaries, She's reflecting his leadership and his mission. That's when the relationship becomes an ecosystem. His structure provides order, but cooperation creates beauty. Adam and Eve archetype. In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve both operated under God's authority. Once Eve stepped out of God's instructions or structure by eating from the forbidden tree, she became the reflection of her own decision, not God's will. Therefore, Adam and Eve were both removed from divine order. The lesson: the moment a woman disobeys the order that sustains the ecosystem, she disconnects from the reflection of that order, and the chaos that follows her is her own creation. The ecosystem rule. A man must create an environment, a masculine ecosystem, where his expectations, instructions, and mission are clear. Women who are aligned thrive within that system. Women who resist must be released from it. You can't build peace with someone who profits from your disorder. Right? The decision of separation. Once a woman breaks alignment, the man's job is not to argue or negotiate. It's to withdraw his structure and energy. Because a man's presence and leadership are resources, not entitlements. Just like God cast Adam and Eve out of Eden, a man must have the courage to cast out anything that refuses to stay within his garden, his structure, his mission, and order. So that's accountability on men, right? Alignment equals reflection. Rebellion is self-reflection. A woman only mirrors a man when she moves in harmony with him, not when she tests or resists his order. The discipline of sovereign masculinity, accountability, and appearance, and in order, right? True masculinity begins with accountability to the self, not to your woman, not to society, not even to validation, but to your own law, structure, and standard. A man must develop his identity around what objective masculinity is: structure, order, self-control, improvement, and presentation, and then express that structure through his own individuality. Sovereign masculinity is self-mastery shaped by order, expressed through individuality, right? So there's layers to sovereign masculinity. And there's a benefit from learning from the objective things that masculinity teaches, right? Structure, order, self-control, improvement, and presentation. And then you express that structure through your own individuality. And that's what you call sovereign masculinity. It's mastering yourself through a foundation. The external internal equation. A man must look, move, and present himself with intentionality. His grooming, dress, fitness, posture, speech, and energy must all communicate that he respects himself. These are not acts of vanity, they are acts of discipline. The world judges first by what it sees. Your visual order communicates your inner order. The internal, his demeanor, tone, and energy must reflect inner calm and grounded confidence. His emotions must be disciplined. He doesn't chase validation or react out of insecurity. He can learn charisma, charm, and presence, but he must anchor them to substance. When both internal and external are aligned, that's a complete man. You got to merge the balance between the external and the internal order. Right? The role of appearance and swagger. Swagger isn't ignorance, it's confident within mastery. A man's appearance should represent who he is becoming, not just who he is today. Dress with purpose, speak with their. I want to say that again. Swagger is an arrogance. It's confidence rooted in mastery. A man's appearance should represent who he's becoming, not just who he is today. Dress with purpose, speak with direction, move with authority. When a man sets a high standard for his grooming and presentation, it sends a message to the world. I respect myself, therefore you will too. Powerful. I damn near cried after that quote I came up with. When I was writing that quote and I thought of that quote, I cried. I want to repeat this again. When a man sets a high standard for his grooming and presentation, it sends a message to the world. I respect myself, therefore you will too. That's that Shango energy in me. That's that Caribbean fire in me. You heard me? That tether energy that y'all FBA niggas call. When a man approaches a woman and gets rejected, he should never internalize it as failure. Rejection does not reduce their value. It reveals her alignment or lack thereof. If she doesn't see your value, that's her limitation, not your inadequacy. If the date doesn't go right, that's just feedback, not final judgment. The goal isn't approval, it's authenticity and consistency. Rejection doesn't define the man. How he moves afterward does, right? Masculine sovereignty is built through constant irritation. Every day, refine your craft, sharpen your look, upgrade your mindset, and test your composure. Not because you're trying to attract, but because you're becoming. A man who keeps evolving becomes magnetic by default. Women in society respond to what he has already built inside himself. Summary quote: build your structure for you, shape your parents for the world, and never let rejection shake what discipline already made solid. And yo, that was the presentation. You feel me? Um, Eventually, I'm going to turn a lot of these things into books, um, literature for the generation after me, like Gen Z and whatever to come out after that. I want to produce them because I want to shift the culture. I want to correct masculinity and balance it back. But anyway, make sure you donate, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. All that stuff will be in all my places to donate to me will be in the description. All right, help me to become a bigger channel, right? So now I can influence the planet, with a lot of my thoughts and my thinkings, right? And stay tuned because there's a whole lot more to come. Anyway, this is Kish, Yardy, Gaming Nation. No.